Well, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. My name is Linda Krennicke, and my pronouns are she and her. I am this morning's worship associate. If today is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Right after the service, you're invited to our welcome room, which is located at the south entrance over here. And if you're online, the link to our visitor form is being dropped into chat now. And please note, there's a new way to be welcomed at UUCE. It's called our Guide Program, where a member will commit to calling you a few times across time to answer your UUCE questions. As you enter the sanctuary and at any point during the service, you may write your joys and sorrows in our book, light a candle, or place a stone in the water, and that's over here. Those joining from home can write their joys and sorrows in the Zoom chat, which will be open until the beginning of the sermon. During the week, you can go to the pastoral care portal on our website to let our ministers know you need support. Now, our annual meeting will follow directly after worship today. If you have children in faith formation, they'll be walked to child care in room 3 if they're not picked up by 11:15. Please plan to pick your children up from room 3 or the playground by noon, 12 o'clock. We gather and worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. Hawkeye is going to light our chalice this morning. Thank you, Mom. We light this chalice today with our monthly theme in mind of celebrating blessings. It is a blessing to come together in community. It's a blessing to be safe enough to hold worship and meetings and celebrations. May this light shine a path of joy through to all of these community gatherings today. And now let's say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. Now we're going to be singing hymn number 1007. There, not yet? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Hackett. My pronouns are she and her, and I am, for this one last day, the assistant minister of this church focused on the areas of adult faith formation and pastoral care. I'm so glad to be here with you! And see real people in these real seats. And a little love to our Zoom folks, too. Our call to worship words today come from L.R. Nost. Life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing. Hold on through the awful. And relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living. Heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. Come, lay your burden down. Worship with us, with this amazing community of people, holding together the mundane, ordinary, and routine, and also the extraordinary. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Kristen Cure, she, her, y en español, ella. Our meditation today is our land acknowledgement. Our land acknowledgement is an act of remembering, an act of repair, an act of accountability, an act of acknowledgement and atonement. Let us take a moment to reflect upon this place where we gather. Let us recall that this is the stolen ancestral land of the Chelamela and Chifin bands of the Kalapuya people whose descendants still live among us. For time out of mind, indigenous people lived here along the Willamette River, maintaining the diverse oak savanna ecosystem through careful land management based on their deep understanding and sense of kinship with the world around them. White American settlers and colonizers decimated entire villages with disease, forcibly laid claim to the land, and brutally removed the Kalapuya people living along with over 30 other tribes to now what are the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. The attempts to destroy Native culture continued through the banishment of languages, broken treaties, and the separation of children from their families sent to boarding schools where children were abused and traumatized. Today, there are several ongoing efforts in our region to revitalize languages, restore land and water rights, cultivate indigenous arts and sciences, and reestablish the sovereignty of Native tribes. Let those of us who occupy this land resolve together to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. May we do our part to steward this land, and may we continue to strengthen our relationships with our indigenous neighbors.
Today's reading is by Gretchen Haley. Grace meets us where we are. There is nothing you need to bring with you to be welcome here. No right beliefs or proof of citizenship, no eternal optimism or clarity of conviction, no boundless courage or endless expertise. You do not need to know what brought you here or how you will solve that problem you are turning over and over and over in your mind. Your bills do not have to be paid, and your checkbook can be a mess. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working, and your knees may be creaking. You do not need to be already perfect or even halfway to belong in this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us, where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all, where life still pulses and rages and heals and transforms, creating us and this day anew once again.
This is my 14th sermon with you. my third in this sanctuary, and my first with actual people in these seats. This is my fourth time in Eugene in the 2 years that I've been with you, and yet I've been with you so many, many times. Thank you for embracing the inclusive technology that allows this community to be together in so many ways. I can't tell you how many of you have shared with me its importance for them too. And I know how important it was for me to continue to be with you in this journey this past year in that way too. I want to start by telling you a little bit about me today, and then I want to tell you a lot about you. First of all, for those of you who may be visiting for the first time today, welcome. Last year, I was this congregation's ministerial intern. I stayed on this one additional year as our senior ministerial leadership shifted and have supported Rev Jen as she began her ministry here this year. And she has been supporting me too, letting me watch how she does ministerial magic as I continue to grow into my ministerial self. And I've been doing this work with this beautiful congregation, with the miracle of our new technology all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. Almost all of that time. At the end of this calendar year, I'll have a better idea of when I will be back for a live ordination with all of you here. Yes. I'll keep you posted, and you're all invited. And in this time between this ending and that returning, starting tomorrow, I will no longer be with you as one of the ministers of this church, meaning that I will refer all ministerial matters to Rev Jen and to your incoming ministerial intern, Tina DeYo, who will join you in October. I've met her. She's wonderful. Also in this time between this ending and that returning, I am neither a senior minister nor am I a long-term employee. And so that means, as Rev Jen and I have discussed, that I'm not obligated to the same no-contact rules as those who have held those roles, which will be good as we plan for ordination. And since I don't social media at all, it's good because it makes me very challenging to find on the internet. So we will put my contact information in next week's weekly connections. So with the logistics out of the way, I want to talk with you about what makes this church special and why it has such staying power since 1909. This church's history is a little like our call to worship words today from L.R. Nost. Amazing, sometimes awful, and then amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's the ordinary and the mundane and the routine, and it's together, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. UUCE, you have reached your amazing stride, and you're well on your way to breathtakingly beautiful. I've been wondering what it would take for this community to get to that brass ring space. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been low-key conducting my own research on what makes congregations work, what makes a congregation succeed. Last year, all church year long, I got to be a facilitator for a nationwide group of UU churches, all the same size as this one. It was a wonderful glimpse into how other churches this size do things, how they problem solve, how they work at succeeding and living into their missions. Now, I admit to some bias here, and I have some more intimate knowledge of the data found here versus what I was able to learn about those other places. I also know there's always room for growth and improvement. But when compared to those churches of the other size, this church was at the top of the stack. Why is that? If we don't know, how can we ensure that we can keep doing the work of our mission, of transforming ourselves and the world? I think UUCE is well on its way to being an epicenter of a new blue zone. If you haven't heard yet of the world's blue zones, allow me to introduce you to the concept. Since the beginning of this century, author Dan Buettner has been learning the secret of a long and happy life. He's found the 5 areas of the world where people live the longest, with their body and mind both intact, and also functioning relatively well, especially for people who have been using those vessels for 90 to 100 to 100 plus years. Buettner's been studying them to find what they hold in common. Here's what he found. These people are moving their bodies throughout the course of a regular day. They're gardening or walking or bicycling their children to school, or maybe themselves to the library or to church or anywhere they need to go. They're moving. They're also eating a mostly plant-based diet with limits on caffeine and alcohol, with intermittent periods of fasting. And they stop eating before they're totally full. They're sleeping enough at night, taking care of themselves, and they take 20 to 30-minute naps in the middle of the day. They're finding ways to have purpose. Their religious communities are central to their spiritual growth and as a community of support. And they are regularly engaging with people from generations other than their own. Now, the eating and the moving and the sleeping are all things to pay attention to. But what struck me about those findings were finding and understanding our purpose, being a part of a religious community that is central to spiritual growth and a community of support, and the multi-generational importance. It seems to me that those last 3 things, fully half the recipe for good living, for a long, healthy, happy life, are happening right here. All the time, every week of the year. Finding and understanding our purpose is happening in our robust faith formation classes, as is being a part of a religious community that's central to spiritual growth. Right here at church, we are regularly engaging with people from generations different than our own in a community of support. If we can all lean into that golden rule and welcoming our newcomers with gusto, this burgeoning blue zone church could be the 6th epicenter for a long and healthy living. So let's talk about that golden rule for a minute. Treating others the way that you would like to be treated begins with genuinely considering how you would like to be treated. And then, and this is key, it's not necessarily treating others how you might like to be treated, but knowing how to ask another how they might like to be treated. Asking base questions of each other, such as, what is it that you need? And how can I help? With a true and continued examination of our own needs and our own gifts, we can symbiotically make this community with our shared values and our shared mission work for ever more people, empowered by love. If you can each find your purpose, the mission of transforming our world will be well on its way. It will be our own hallelujah right here by our own river. I'm reminded of the story of our own food justice program right here at UUCE and our own Barry Broadbent, who for many years was so frustrated about this church not doing enough in the food justice arena. Last year, I assure you, I asked and received permission from Barry to share this story. Barry's frustration increased such that she felt like sometimes leaving this beloved community. And then one day, Barry realized she had the gifts and talents to do more with food justice in this community. And she lent those gifts and talents towards transforming the world right here from this kitchen. And it's amazing. And I'm sure it's sometimes awful. And then it's amazing again. And that is the life of community. This community has been especially good to learners of late, and especially good to me. It's one of the many requirements toward becoming a minister to do an internship. And you have welcomed me with your open arms as a teaching congregation. And when this bridge year opportunity occurred, you opened your community to let me serve you again. You made space for me to make mistakes and to learn and to grow. You have been the best of the golden rule and shown me what's possible at church, a word I always see with a capital Z, because of its importance. When my time for ordination comes, I wouldn't do it anywhere else. I learned of a Dolly Parton song this past fall while reading my daily e-register guard. I've been with you in so many ways. It so nicely summed up my feelings for the congregation of beautiful people assembled here today. And I've asked Izzy to lend her awesome voice to it. That'll come up next. It turns out that 50 years ago, Dolly Parton was an up-and-coming artist, and she was getting a chance with the big star Porter Wagner as his opening act on tour. And while she was in Eugene, here she got sick, and she was nervous about going on stage and maybe not sounding her best. And she was so sad and unsure of how she'd be received up there in a big crowd of unknown Eugenians. And that's what it's like to be a newcomer here. People are unsure, hoping you're giving your best to the community. They're wanting to be welcomed into this multi-generational community of love. Well, true to form, they received her with such warmth and love and enthusiasm that she went right back to her hotel room that night and she wrote the song, Eugene, Oregon. Minus the homesickness that Dolly experienced, since I was almost entirely at my house, I'm borrowing her song words to offer to you, which are, Eugene, Oregon, I'll remember you for the rest of my life. I won't forget how good you were to me. Keep being your best loving selves in community UUCE. With it, you have the power to transform yourselves and to heal the world.
So Jennifer, Linda, and Emily, could I ask that you all take a place up on the pulpit, please? So in this era, this strange era of ghosting, one of the most important things that the church community teaches is how to say a proper goodbye, how to say thank you, how to acknowledge the time that we've spent together, and then how to acknowledge how sad it must be to say goodbye. And so we're practicing that today, even though I don't want to say goodbye to Jennifer. Jennifer has been the bridge from the time when Rev Lowe left, and in this year that I've been arriving, she's provided this continuity that has been graceful and generous and loving. I don't want to say goodbye to Jennifer Hackett. I really don't. I have loved working with you. I've loved collaborating with you. I've loved problem solving with you. I've loved conversating with you and eating and drinking with you. And I have loved all of my time with you, sincerely. You have served as a minister truly to this congregation. You have ministered to this congregation as a pastor, as a teacher, as a counselor, as a brilliant administrator, superb organizer. You have been this congregation's minister, absolutely. And so there's no way that we could give you a gift that would equal all of our thanks and all of our appreciation and affection, but we have a few gifts for you.
Thank you.
A round of applause. And now I'm going to ask the ushers to please collect the pieces of paper. And I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with these words. This year, we're going to create a stole, a beautiful ministerial stole for Jennifer's ordination. And on the inside lining of that stole, we're going to write these words on that stole. So these words are very, very important. For those of you who are online, you can put them in the chat, put your words in the chat. And if you came in a little bit late today, there are pieces of paper over here, and nobody will be left out. Just write your words over there. And as the ushers go around collecting, we're going to hear Dolly Parton's song.
Our chalice extinguishing that normally happens now is not happening yet. You still will be having a benediction, but then we'll be moving directly into our annual meeting without a postlude today, and the chalice will be extinguished following a reception in the parking lot to reward you for your participation in democracy. Folks joining us on Zoom will need to move to the virtual social hall in a moment for the annual meeting. You can find that link in the weekly connections. It's also being dropped into the chat now. If you are a guest, you are welcome to stay for the meeting. For our benediction into the meeting, I offer you words that you know well, written by the first UU Nashville Youth Choir. May your minds be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love, and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. May it be so.